Yo, what's going on, YouTube, man? Long time no see, long time no talk. If you guys are new here, it's your boy Calvin Domingo, aka Steezy A. And man, I got a lot of heat ready for y'all and on the way. But today, I got a very special guest with me. As you guys are familiar with my term by now, I got a VIG, a very important guest. And so I'm about to bring them on right now. Please, ladies and gentlemen, I got Utah State legend, Seahawks legend, Super Bowl champion. I just found this out recently, but we got the same birthday, December 2nd. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Robert Turbin, a.k.a. Turbo.
Hey, shout out to the Sagittariuses out there.
Hey, Sagittarius gang. But you know who else has the same birthday as us?
Who?
Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones.
Is that right? Oh, so you looked up to see who all, who's all got the why my hat not working out for me right now? Who all got the same birthdays as their son? The celebrities?
I mean, honestly, bro, that's not even something I looked up. I just remember, I think it was a couple of years ago, it was Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones on the Packers playing on a Monday night. And that Monday night just so happened to be on December 2nd. And I remember the broadcaster saying happy birthday. I'm like, hold on. They saying happy birthday to me? Okay. But then I was like, nah, they don't know me yet. And so Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones, that stuck with me for a couple of years now. And then I had, just looked you up to look at some of the stats, and I saw that you was born on December 2nd. So I was like, he's Sagittarius gang too.
12-2. You already know what time it is. You know what time it is. I got to know how you got the name Steezy A. Smith, though.
Man, what's the show with that?
Came from.
I'll lay it on you, bro. Honestly, so throughout high school, I was given the nickname Cal Steezy, right? So my nickname's Calvin, and they used to call me Cal Steezy. And so I think it was after high school is when I realized, like, you know what? I want to get into journalism. I want to get into sports media. And so I need a screen name. And so short for Cal Steezy, everybody would call me Steezy. And as you know, the A. Smith comes from one of the best in the game right now, Stephen A. Smith. I like to think that he has a chokehold, or at least he's sitting in that throne, right? When as it pertains to sports media. And so his name is synonymous with sports. I'm not trying to bite. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I said, let me come up with something catchy. And so I took the Steezy, which everybody started calling me already, and I just combined it with the A. Smith. And from there, I really just started to take off on my own right.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Well, congratulations on everything you've accomplished so far, man. Keep grinding. I'm excited to be on the show today.
Man, heck yeah. Hey, all glory to God. AGTG, man. I like to say that. Before we do kick things off, though, Turbo, I just got to ask, bro, how you feeling? I know you're an analyst now, among other things, but how you been keeping busy? Like, have you done anything fun this summer?
You know what? This summer has been chill. Then it got kind of crazy this last month. I was just in Seattle, as you know, for the All-Star Seattle Classic, softball charity game. That was a lot of fun. And I was excited to be able to have the opportunity to finally go, because the last couple years, the first 2 years that they put the event on, I got the invite, but schedule-wise, it just didn't work out, man. So it was exciting to be able to give back to the community from that aspect. You did mention, the broadcasting, things that I'm doing now. I was in Vegas for media days last week, so got a chance for the Mountain West Conference, by the way. So got a chance to talk to all the head coaches through the conference, obviously the Mountain West Conference folks, some ADs. Every team brings 2 players, 1 offense, 1 defensive player, usually captains of the team. So got a chance to chop it up with those guys as well as they getting ready for training camp, man. So keeping busy, man, but got a pretty good, got some free time as well. I'm back in school. I'm at Indiana University getting my MBA right now. So that keeps me busy as well, man. Just a lot of cool things going on, man. God has been good. Just staying busy, staying locked in.
Hey, and that's how it should be, right? That's how it should be, especially when you're chasing greatness. Gotta stay busy. Real quick before I do ask this question, Turbo, I just gotta ask. I know you're busy with with what you just mentioned, but Seahawks training camp starts next week. Any chance you pulling up to any of that?
Actually, there is a chance. I do some radio stuff with SiriusXM. They reached out to me a few days ago. It's not guaranteed yet, but they did ask me about going to Seahawks training camp, covering the camp for a couple of days, doing a couple shows. on radio. So we'll see how that works itself out. I'd never done that before for SiriusXM, and I've been with them now. This is my 3rd year. So I guess, as I continue to grow, they're asking me to, do more things, but I'd love to be a part of it. I did reach out to John Schneider, the general manager of the Seahawks. I think one of the things that would be helpful for me as a broadcaster and as a color commentator is, being able to sit in meetings, listen to the install, listen to coach, coaching things up, talking about the details and the specifics, hearing the terminology. And that way, when I'm in the broadcast booth during the season, I can sort of regurgitate some of those things that I've learned, because the game is continuing to evolve every year. And there are a lot of the same schemes that are in place when I was playing, but there's also a lot of new things going on, especially when you think about all the shotgun that we're seeing, the spread offenses, et cetera. And so, I'd like to be able to sit in and, really dissect how offenses are trying to attack defenses. And then on the opposite end, how defenses feel like they're trying to stop, this spread attack that offenses are really developing, really in the NFL now too. We see it a lot in college, but the NFL is really adopting it as well.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of fireworks when it comes to college football. And, you got a lot of people talk about how they'd rather watch, college football than the NFL because of all those fireworks that you just spoke of. Real quick, just because we're on that topic, Turbo, now that you're essentially in media, do you feel like you've gained somewhat of a new perspective, having to watch the game from a different point of view?
Not exactly. I'm a player at heart. I'm a player first. I've been fortunate to play the game for a long time. And, even years, like I remember in college, I had an ACL, I had to sit out, but I was like a player's coach. I wore the headset on the sideline. Right. That really is more, that taught me more as far as giving me a different perspective than being on the media side. I think, being on the media side, by the way, I don't categorize myself as a media member. I don't say that I'm a part of the media. Not that there's anything negative about it, but I see myself more as a football expert or something along the lines of that. But I'm not out here searching for a story to put out in the paper the next day. That's not how I roll. I just want to educate folks, talk about the game, talk about strategy, and teach it as much as possible. But I guess the perspective that I've learned on this side is it's a different type of research. You got to get into it, learning about players. As a ball player, when you learn about players, you're mostly learning about their football tactics, for lack of a better way to describe it. But on the media side, you get into their history and families and how they grew up, and so you get to know the player a little bit differently, and so that changes some perspective, maybe slightly from that point of view.
Hey, I can't blame you, Turbo, just because, and I'm trying to do my part because there's a bad rep a lot of the times, right, when it comes to just media and media members. You got media members talking crazy, and I'm well aware of that, right? And obviously, like I didn't play, in the pros. You can say what you want about my experience. I played high school ball, but I see a lot of media members out there talking crazy. And so from a player's perspective, I could say that I understand you guys, because sometimes I'm just like, yo, what's he talking about? Or what's she talking about? They over here talking crazy on TV with millions of people watching. And it's like, I get it. You want to generate views, you want to generate clicks, engagement, you want to do numbers and all that. I get it, but at the expense of some of these guys that are putting their lives on the line, blood, sweat, and tears into their craft, like, there's a better way to go about things. And so, I've come into the game and I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to change the game. I'm going to change this rep. And if I can't, I'm going to make sure that I stand out from the rest. And so, that's kind of where I'm coming in from that side of things. Turbo, though, just to kind of transition a little bit, before we get into the whole Seahawks talk, I came across an article lately, right? It was published by the South Seattle Emerald that originally came from Real Change, which I think you're very familiar with. And in that story, I learned about a time where you were supposed to preview the Seahawks' 2023 season, and which you still did with real change vendors and staff, when all of a sudden one of them had a mental health episode. And so from there, the conversation had taken a massive shift. And it was then when I realized that, and I didn't know this before, but you talked about how you have been homeless in the past on multiple occasions. So talk to me briefly about how those experiences have helped shape you into the human being that you are today.
Yeah, I mean, that's a loaded question. You know, I've been fortunate and unfortunate to go through, you know, some different things in my life. But, you know, really what I learned was, you know, I don't know, I guess my biggest vulnerabilities over time became my biggest strength. And that was a point in my life where I really didn't know how things are going to turn out for me. But, you know, through the grace of God, I was able to get through it and, you know, be where I'm at today. And I'm more educated and I'm more positioned now to be able to impact others positively, especially guys who are former players, because I know what the process looks like and I know how difficult it can be to have to transition. And so, you know, that was a tough time for me, but, you know, I was able to get through it. I had some great friends. You see a couple of these guys, jerseys behind me, you know, R-Dub and B Wags, you know, were very impactful for me during those times. They didn't always know exactly what was going on, you know, with me. I had to keep those details from them. But, you know, if and when I needed a helping hand, you know, they were there to serve me. And that was, you know, that was a huge, you know, a huge piece as far as, you know, getting me turned around and headed in the right direction. There were some others too, you know, Will Davis. I mean, the list goes on and on. But, you know, at the end of the day, although it was a significantly tough patch in my life, I'm actually thankful that I went through it because it changed me, and I learned a lot from it.
Man, hey, when I read that, I was just inspired, right? Because for those of us on the outside, you know, we look at you, like I mentioned in the intro, Utah State legend, Super Bowl champion, NFL veteran, Seahawks legend. You spent time with the Colts, with the Browns, and we don't know, you know, that side of your story. All we see is, you know, the glitz and the glamour, the success, and so for me, just, you know, reading that, seeing how that was a part of your come up and your background. It was, like I said, very, very inspirational. And you kind of talked about it a little bit, but Turbo, what role would you say your faith has had in all the success that you've enjoyed over the years?
I mean, it's been the biggest piece, you know, because, you know, I just feel like without it, it's difficult to accomplish anything, you know, like even in my pursuit of wanting to be in the NFL one day, you know, everybody didn't believe in that. Everybody didn't trust that was a realistic goal of mine or that it was attainable. And so I had to have, you know, a pretty heavy amount of mental fortitude in myself and my faith that I could do anything that I wanted to do. And my father believed in that, you know, as well. You know, he never really doubted anything, any goal that I had. And that was helpful throughout my life also. But, you know, I feel like, you know, if you have a goal and you don't necessarily believe that it's attainable or don't have faith, then you're likely not to accomplish it. But I think that's the most important piece, because if you do have that, if you do have the faith, then you're going to go about it and do everything that you can to attain it and be willing to go through the ebbs and the flows throughout the journey, you know, while you're getting there. And then when you get there, you know, you do everything you can to be the best that you can be. Again, being able to get through those, you know, adverse times, etc., in order to, you know, find greatness in the thing that you love doing.
Man, well said, Turbo. So we talked about life just a little bit. But at the top of the show, I did mention how, you know, I do want to chop it up about the Seattle Seahawks for this upcoming season. And so I got to bring this up real quick. Turbo, last offseason, you mentioned on the Seahawks sports station that you felt like the Seahawks could capture the NFC West crown over San Francisco. And you also felt like the team should have been in the NFC Championship game last year, at least had made it to that stage. And so do you think that expectations should be tempered this time around with what is essentially a new regime on the coaching side of things?
It's a good question. I think that because there's a pretty decent level of newness on the team, I think those expectations can be tempered some. Absolutely. You just don't know what you're going to get. You've got a new offensive coordinator coming from college. You got a new head coach who's a first-time head coach. And so, you're talking about a group now that has not been through, what a 17-game season takes you through yet. And it's difficult to navigate that level of chemistry and bonding and togetherness when you haven't experienced it together yet. Individually, they all have in their own ways. But they're going to have to find that connectivity throughout this season. And that'll tell the story, for the Seahawks, because with any team, with the Chiefs last year, what was it that they had to overcome? Well, they had to overcome the fact that their wide receivers weren't getting it done early in the season. And, historically, it hadn't really been the defense that stepped up for them, but that was the piece that got them over the hump, last year. And they were able to repeat as champions. But when you looked at the Kansas City Chiefs, the first 8 games of the season, first 9 games, you're like, I'm not so sure they're going to make it to the Super Bowl again. So they had to overcome those adverse. But how were they able to do that? Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, all of these guys on the court, they've all been together before. So they have that chemistry amongst one another. They understand what it takes together to get through the ebbs and the flows of a football season. The Seahawks, at least from a coaching staff standpoint, haven't done that yet. And they've got quite a number of young players as well. So I think the expectations, I don't quite see the Seahawks in that light, which is hard for me to say, this season. But they certainly have the potential to get there. And if they did, it would shock me. I think it would shock a lot of the NFL world. But that's not an indication that they don't have the talent to do it. And so they're headed in the right direction, but I don't know if NFC Championship game is on their radar for this season.
Right, and I agree. And so with that being said, Turbo, what do you think would quantify a successful season for the 2024-2025 Seattle Seahawks?
Well, you got to make the playoffs.
Okay.
You got to make the playoffs. I mean, you got to make the playoffs at minimum, whether that's a wild card berth. The team's too good not to.
Right.
There are some young players on the team, but you still have, a good number of veterans. You got a veteran at quarterback. You got veteran wide receivers. You got veteran O-line and D-line players. You got veteran linebackers that you picked up in free agency. I think that, but it's hard because the NFC is, we don't talk about the NFC the way that we talk about the AFC, but
yeah, right.
It's difficult to get to number 7. It's difficult to get one of those 7 spots in the playoffs. It's not hard. I mean, it's not easy. And then you look at the NFC West alone, everybody sees the 49ers at the top. We'll see what happens with them and Brandon Ayuk, whether that helps or hurts the team. You still got to deal with the Rams, who historically the Seahawks have trouble beating. They have trouble beating the Rams. And then you can't sleep on the Cardinals because they're not the same Cardinals anymore. They're not the Cardinals of the past. Everybody's healthy. They got they got a new Ferrari playing at wide receiver now. He's no joke. Okay, they got a run game and they've upgraded their defense tremendously. By the way, a defensive head coach and Coach Gannon. So it's the wild. It's going to be a wild west in the NFC West this season, and the Hawks are going to have to they have to come to play. They have to bring their A game in order to stay afloat and get a playoff berth. But if they miss the playoffs, I don't necessarily think it's a failure, But I do feel like you'll see some significant personnel changes if that happens this season.
Ooh, and that's definitely a topic for a different day, but I think you speak of facts. I mean, just to kind of piggyback off what you were saying, the Cardinals last year, they were beating teams they shouldn't have beaten. Remember that time when they beat the Dallas Cowboys with, what was it, Joshua Dobbs at quarterback? This was a team that fought. This was a team that was stingy, that was feisty, and that was hanging on against teams that they had no business hanging on with as far as from a talent perspective. But they're well coached. As you mentioned, Jonathan Gannon coming over from the Philadelphia Eagles. He was a DC there, defensive-minded head coach. He's going to get the most out of these guys. And now that the offense, James Conner went on a tear end of the year last year. You talked about Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, an emerging threat at tight end. The Cardinals have a lot of pieces to work with. The Rams, they don't have Aaron Donald no more, but that offense with Puka and a healthy Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams with the Blake Corum. I mean, Matthew Stafford's still going to be Matthew Stafford. They worked on enhancing the offensive line. The 49ers, even if Brandon Ayuk, we don't know what's going to happen there, but they drafted a Ricky Pearsall, right? You still have a Christian McCaffrey, the weapons galore, right? And so we haven't even touched on the NFC North with Caleb Williams and the Bears, the Packers and Jordan Love. Like there's a lot going on in the NFC. Like people look at the AFC, it's like, yeah, they're the superior conference, but the NFC now, we got to start sleeping on these teams that are going to contend for a wild card spot because there's a lot more than there was last year. So, I'm with you though. If the Seahawks don't make the playoffs, it's not necessarily a failure per se, just because, again, it is a new coaching staff, essentially a new regime. Like you said, these guys haven't been a war all together. And so collectively, they haven't been there. Individually, yes, there's a bunch of talent on the roster, but I wouldn't necessarily hold it against Seattle if they don't. Turbo, though, I do want to talk about the wide receivers. Speaking of wide receivers, you talked about the Kansas City Chiefs and how, the first half of last year, we weren't even sure if that team was going to the Super Bowl because of all the drops and whatnot. Now, a team that doesn't have to worry about wide receivers, the Seattle Seahawks, right? And so you said on NFL Total Access a few months ago that the Seahawks have the best wide receiver trio in the NFL. And that I'm not going to argue because I'm with you right there. No bias whatsoever. But what's the likelihood, and I know this is a crazy question, sort of, but what's the likelihood that all three, and I'm talking Tyler Lockett, DK, and JSN, all crack 1,000 yards receiving this year?
Not likely. Okay. Not likely.
That was fast.
They got close, though, last season. Each of them had 600 yards last season each. I want to say at least 4 touchdowns each and at least 60 receptions each. Yeah. And so that's pretty significant for a trio. That's why I said that they were the best trio. And I also feel like, especially with DK, I think I'm lagging a little bit on this video, but especially with DK, I don't feel like he's reached his full potential yet as a wide receiver. I think there's still more that he can give to the game. And so, I know that JSN is an exciting player, as he should be. He's going to continue to ball out the way that he has. But I think there's a space in DK's game that can still be unlocked. And if there's one thing I'm really looking forward to this season with the Seahawks, a lot of great talent everywhere. Defense, offensive line, we'll see how they play. D-line. I want to see DK this season. I want to see how that connectivity between him, Geno Smith, Ryan Grubb, I want to see if they can unlock another level to his game because I think that is there.
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, you look at every year that he's been in the league, 900 plus yards, 58 plus catches, 6 plus touchdowns every year. And for reference, I had this up for just a second. The Seahawks offense as a whole played the least amount of snaps offensively last year. The only team in the NFL with less than 1,000. And they had one of the worst, and they had one of the worst red zone and third down offenses in the entire NFL. That's been a problem now for the last couple of years. And you still have DK putting up numbers. You still have K9 putting up numbers. You still have Tyler Lockett putting up numbers. But if you think about it, the defense is leading the league in snaps played. Offense is leading the league in lowest snaps played. And so it's like, if you think that those numbers are going back, right around the median, then they're going to have more opportunities to put up numbers. Not that that's necessarily the goal, but like you mentioned, DK hasn't even scratched the surface of his potential. And I feel like to a degree, the team has kind of held him back in that regard. You give the Seahawks the average amount of snaps that every other team in the NFL is playing, maybe he's putting a 1,200, 1,300 yards receiving every year.
But that's
right?
on the Seahawks. That's on the Seahawks. And that's why I'm excited about this year, with Coach Grubb as the offensive coordinator. I'm interested to see what sort of wrinkles and this type of dynamic he brings to the offense. The offense over the last few years, they just feel lackadaisical, man. And they almost fool you, and it's tough to watch at times. But they fool you because they get these big plays. It's like, oh, there it is, boom, Seahawks offense, but not consistent enough. And that's why I can't see them. And unless something drastically changes offensively for the team, I can't see him in the NFC Championship game until those fireworks really start to pop off on offense.
No doubt about that. No doubt about that. Turbo, we talked about the wide receiver room. The DB room is stacked. Other position groups are stacked. But because you're a former running back, I want to talk about Seattle's running backs. There's an argument to be made that room is stacked as well. And so give me your outlook on the running back situation in Seattle in 2024, 2025. What does the duo of K9, Zach Charbonnet rank in the NFL? What role do you see Kenny McIntosh playing? Will K9 have his best year?
All great questions. I think that both K9 and Zach are going to take steps forward in their careers this season. They both have the potential to be stars, in this league. And it just comes down to, the consistency and really having that sense of urgency from the start of the game, all the way through. I think the offense in totality sometimes takes a little while, to get going. And that's what's held them back. It'll be interesting to see under this new regime how the run game is utilized, how it's prioritized, in this offense. Because, K9 is a dynamic player who can do some dynamic things outside of the backfield. And Zach Charbonnet, to his credit, downhill, break tackles. We've seen him literally put guys on their ass that's tried to tackle him. And then Kenny McIntosh, still a young player with a lot of potential, and we'll see what he can add. But, this room is not one to be slept on. And I think right now that's a little bit of the case. And I think maybe that's the case for the Seahawks in general. But if you can create something exciting, in that backfield, I think you'll start to see, a lot of great things happen with the Seahawks offense this season.
Right. And I mean, I'm real excited. I think Kenny McIntosh, I'm counting him as a rookie this year just because he ain't played at all last year.
Right.
K9, I mean, again, we talked about the injuries on the offensive line, how the offense is, it's been inept. Is that a word? No, inept, excuse me, in the red zone on third down. And he's still been putting up numbers. And so I think the offensive line is much improved.
Yeah. And you asked me about the rankings, which is difficult to do just because I'd have to look at, the entire league. But even in the division, it's tough, man. Because K9 and Zach as a tandem are good. But, I also think Christian McCaffrey is good enough to kind of trump any duo in the league. You could argue he's the best back in the league right now.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you can't sleep on what Kyron Williams was able to do last season in LA, with the Rams. Do we rank him above, K9? And it's tough. They just drafted that boy Corum out of Michigan. Corum ain't sniffed the field yet, so it's hard for me to give a ranking on that. But Kyron Williams was good enough for you to be like, he might have been second best in the division last season. I don't know. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then you definitely can't sleep on James Conner. And James Conner is a baller. And he was all the Cardinals had offensively last season. And he still made it happen. So even in the division, you talk about ranking these guys, it's hard. it's hard, but I think it's what you said. You made a great point. They need more opportunity on the field. They got to stay on the field more. And I think that would help their rankings a little bit as far as where they sit amongst other running backs in the league.
Right. And you talked about Kyron Williams. I mean, I had him in a bunch of my fantasy teams last year. And he was undrafted, right? And here he is, an undrafted player.
Killing.
He's a top 5 running back, right? And it's like, damn.
He won me some games.
He won me a lot of games. I won a couple championships too. And so I'm fond of Kyron Williams, even though he is a Ram. And then just real quick, the Cardinals, bro, you talked about James Conner. They also drafted Trey McBride. Trey Benson, right, out of FSU. And for me, it's like, he is a dog, bro. He is a dog, bro. Like, he got that Adrian Peterson, Leonard Fournette type of size. He's explosive. He fast as hell. And it's like, you pair him up with James Conner and that dual threat ability that Kyler Murray already brings to the table. It's like, man, I didn't even think about that. But like before the show, bro, in the division, it's tough right now. It's tough, but more opportunity might mean, more as it pertains to, how good these guys are eventually going to be. But man, the running back room, I'm real excited. But just a couple more questions for you here, Toba. I know we've eclipsed the 30-minute mark. We've talked about the running backs. We've talked about the receivers. We talked about the DB room briefly. But just for a second thought, I do want to talk about a legend.
Okay.
And like many of us in Seattle, you were really shocked that legendary head coach Pete Carroll was let go earlier this year. What do you think his real role is as the advisor on the Seahawks, if anything?
I think that, he's there to – I don't know. I don't know exactly what his requirements are in that role, but he's there to give advice. If Mike McDonald needs advice, he's there. He's there to sort of, kind of be maybe the right hand for John Snyder, in a way, who's the general manager of the team. Just give his insights on roster, personnel, things of that nature. I think he's there to just share perspective and give an opinion. And then the actual decision makers will kind of make the final choice from there. But, I think he is there to share perspective. He's been around the game a long time, and I think they value his input.
Right. And that was something I had to ask, because there's just a lot of fans, on Twitter, on social media, that they're always asking, they're always wondering, is Pete actually on a team, or is that just like are they just being generous? Are they just being polite? Like, is he just getting paid to sit at home? And so I was just like, let me ask somebody who might or might not know. So I figured I'd ask that. But Turbo, like I said, we're going to talk about legends just real quick, right? So from one legend to another, as someone who's been close to Russell Wilson since y'all came into the league together in 2012, how did it make you feel watching him mistreated in Denver last year?
I was pissed off about it. But I also felt like there was a profound lesson in the whole time that he was there. For him, especially, perhaps for Denver, for other people who kind of witnessed what happened around the league. You have to fail, man. You have to have adversity. It's never gonna go perfectly for you, man. The adverse times, they're opportunities. When adversity hits, it's opportunities to respond, and the response is really sort of indicates who you are as an individual, And so, although I was disappointed to see what was transpiring, in a way I was thinking about, man, I can't wait till he gets an opportunity to respond to all of this in his own way, whether it's playing for another team, which it sounds like that's the way it's going to be because he's with the Steelers now, or if he stays with the team and, he balls out in your thing, whatever the case was, he was going to have his opportunity to get his get back. And that's why I'm excited for him this season. So although it was disappointing, I thought it was fruitful for his life and career.
Man, beautifully said. Beautifully said. I mean, you can't just expect to go through life just smooth sailing, right, the whole time. I mean, I think you find out a lot about yourself as a man when you respond to adversity, to the different challenges that we're faced with, because we're all going to be tested, right? We're all soldiers. The way I look at it, we're all soldiers of God, and it's like he's going to put his soldiers to the test, right? And some of us going to pass, some of us going to fail. Russell Wilson on the outside looking in, I know he's a very faithful man. I know he has a lot of faith and trust in the man above. And so he's somebody I'm always going to root for, right? A lot of Seattle fans turn on him when he left Seattle. We don't got to get into that, but it's like, look at all the work and everything that he put into Seattle, into the city, man. Like the love is still there. I'm rooting for him wherever he goes. We can keep this short because I do got one more question about one more legend. But do you think that the Steelers are a playoff team in what could be the most competitive division in the NFL?
Boy, that's a tough one.
Right.
There's potential there.
Mm-hmm.
They need one more piece, I think.
You think they get Ayuk?
I think they need to get Ayuk.
Yeah.
They need another wideout. They need a you know, not that George Pickens isn't I don't know him, so I can't say that he's immature or anything. But a veteran guy in that room, I think, would really solidify the Steelers really contending. Like, and I think there's a difference between being a playoff team and then being a contender. You know what I'm saying? And right now, you know, the Steelers, they look like they could potentially make a wild card spot, be second or third in their division. But another piece, Ayuk specifically, maybe they find a way to get Cortland Sutton from Denver. That would solidify it for me. Saying like, okay, they're in the playoffs. They may be able to win a game or two in the playoffs. You know, once you get in, it's like a we'll see. You know, it's a one game. You know, it's one game. It's all it takes. So the potential is there. But they got to find a way to get Ayuk from the 49ers, I think.
Hey, I'm right there with you, Turb. One last question about another legend whose jersey you happen to have behind you. As a Utah State legend yourself, I got to ask you about another Utah State legend, Bobby Wagner. And so what are your expectations for him in Washington after reuniting with Dan Quinn? Do you think he could still be All-Pro at 34 years old on a team as young as the Commanders?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. B. Wags is an extremely hard worker. He's very consistent. You know, he's very quiet as far as, you know, how he operates his process in preparing for the season in and out. You know, he doesn't take anything lightly. His nutrition, you know, the type of training that he's doing, the way that he takes care of his body. And he's using other guys as examples, you know, the Ray Lewises of the world. Who's the linebacker that played for the Commanders when they used to be the Red? Was it London Fletcher that played a long time? Mm-hmm. Yeah, another great guy to use as an example. So it's been done. These guys have played at 34, 35, and 36. And, you know, B-Wags is one of those, you know, he's one of those unicorns, man. You know, they don't come very often. And I'm really excited to see him play again this season.
Man, right there with you. One last question to end the show. It's early, but who's your pick right now to win the Super Bowl in 2024, 2025?
Man, you know what? I think I'm gonna go with the Chiefs, man, to hit the
three-peat.
It's never been done. And I'm one of those guys, look, I love watching greatness.
Yeah.
And I love when players individually or teams as a franchise make history.
Yeah.
And so it'd be actually, I'm not rooting for them by any stretch because I don't really care who wins. Mm-hmm. But it would be cool to see it. And honestly, as we look at the teams on paper right now, they don't have the best roster in the NFL. Mm-hmm. But what we've learned is that they don't have to have the best roster in the NFL. The Chiefs. And so I'm picking them to win it again this season.
It's hard to pick against them, man. It's hard to bet against them. It's getting to that point where it's like, you know, Patrick Mahomes is, if he isn't there already, he's approaching that Brady territory where it's like you bet against them, you're bound to lose money, right? You're bound to lose bread. And so it's like, you know, that's not something I want to do. It's not something you want to do. So, hey,
right.
I get it. But Turbo, you know what they say, man. Time flies when you're having fun. I've had an absolute blast. I can't wait to have you on the show again sometime in the near future. But before we do end things, I do want to give you the floor, Turbo. What you got going on next? You can shout yourself out, put your socials out there, but whatever you want to say to the 12s, man.
Hey, shout out to the 12s. I appreciate you having me on the show. All my social media handles are the same, at Robert J. Turbin. Feel free to follow me. Season's coming up. So I'll be calling all the game of the week for the Mountain West this season, this upcoming year. So I'll catch you guys on Saturdays in the broadcast booth and on some radio shows on NFL Radio Channel 88, Sirius XM. So I'm excited about that, man. And hey, man, thanks for having me.
Hey, you know, it's all love. God bless you, Turbo. And, man, till we talk again soon, brother.
All right, boss.
Stay smooth. All right, y'all. I hope you guys had as much fun as I did. Again, this wasn't live, and so I will be dropping this sometime in the next couple of days. By the time you're watching this, it'll have been a couple of days since the actual interview did take place, but I got a couple more special guests coming on. I got a couple more Seahawks legends on the way, and I can't wait to bring that to the table for you guys. As per usual, man, if you aren't already following me on Instagram, on X, be sure to follow me at Steezy A. Smith for daily content, just because I haven't been as active on YouTube as I have been in the past. But hey, man, for Robert J. Turbin, a.k.a. Turbo, for your boy Calvin Domingo, a.k.a. Steezy A, man, as I like to say, man, all glory to God. Peace and blessings to all of y'all. Again, stay tuned. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Join the Team Steezy family if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell too, because like I said, I do got a couple more interviews that I have scheduled. I'm not even going to list any names there. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you might have a hint as to who, but I got a lot more interviews on the way for you guys. It's nothing but love. And Steezy out, baby. Again, this video is going to be dedicated to Mr. Todd Nas. While that concludes this video, we have loads of other content. You don't have to stop watching there. Other content on our channel homepage, as well as our social media platforms. And again, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for us. Tell a friend and tell a friend. Nothing but love, and Steezy out.